Multiple whistleblowers raise grave concerns with White House efforts to transfer sensitive U.S. nuclear technology to Saudi Arabia.
Here's a summary of the article.
Washington, D.C. Today, Rep. Elijah E. Cummings, the chairman of the Committee on Oversight and Reform, issued an interim staff report after multiple whistleblowers came forward to warn about efforts inside the White House to rush the transfer of highly sensitive U.S. nuclear technology to Saudi Arabia in potential violation of the Atomic Energy Act and without review by Congress as required by law, efforts that may be ongoing to this day. The whistleblowers who came forward have expressed significant concerns about the potential procedural and legal violations connected with rushing through a plan to transfer nuclear technology to Saudi Arabia. They have warned of conflicts of interest among top White House advisors that could implicate federal criminal statutes. They have also warned about a working environment inside the White House marked by chaos, dysfunction, and backbiting. And they have warned about political appointees ignoring directives from top ethics advisors at the White House who repeatedly and unsuccessfully ordered senior Trump administration officials to halt their efforts. The committee's investigation is particularly critical because the administration's efforts to transfer sensitive U.S. nuclear technology to Saudi Arabia appear to be ongoing. On February 12, 2019, the president met with nuclear power developers at the White House about sharing nuclear technology with countries in the Middle East, including Saudi Arabia. In addition, next week Mr. Kushner will be embarking on a tour of Middle Eastern capitals including Riyadh to discuss the economic portion of the administration's Middle East peace plan. The report highlights concerning events involving Saudi Arabia, including the brutal murder of Washington Post columnist Jamal Khashoggi, which was met with equivocation by President Trump and other top administration officials, and the refusal by the White House to submit a report on Mr. Khashoggi's killing that was requested on a bipartisan basis by the Senate Committee on Foreign Relations. The report indicates that there is now serious, bipartisan concern with the Trump administration's efforts to transfer sensitive U.S. nuclear technology to Saudi Arabia. On October 31, 2018, Republican Senators Marco Rubio, Todd Young, Cory Gardner, Rand Paul, and Dean Heller sent a letter to President Trump urging him to suspend talks related to a potential civil nuclear cooperation agreement between the United States and Saudi Arabia due to serious concerns about the transparency, accountability, and judgment of current decision-makers in Saudi Arabia. The report describes new documents and communications between White House officials, including former National Security Advisor Michael Flynn, former Deputy National Security Advisor K.T. McFarland, and former NSC Senior Director for Middle East and North African Affairs Derek Harvey, as well as with Thomas Barrack, President Trump's personal friend of several decades and the chairman of his inaugural committee, and Rick Gates, President Trump's former deputy campaign manager and deputy chairman of the inaugural committee, who has now pleaded guilty to financial fraud and lying to investigators.
This post received a score of 81,682, with an upvote ratio of 82%. Here are the top comments in response to this article.
Saudi Arabia as it stands today, is definitely one country who does not need their own nuclear weapons. Edit, here's some knowledge for you to absorb, enjoy. Prince Salman referred to below, is the current king of Saudi Arabia. Additional article, more context. One file released by WikiLeaks from Guantanamo Bay includes the text, "Who is this detainee?" Glad you asked. That's just the current king of Saudi Arabia. We haven't even touched on royal family member Prince Bandar, the former Saudi ambassador to the United States yet. Just a little info on him, his wife sent money to the 9/11 hijackers living in San Diego, California. There are still an estimated 80,000 pages on Saudi Arabia and 9/11 that the FBI is refusing to release.
From what I understand, this isn't weapons tech, it is civilian. So it doesn't violate the NPT. Still very concerning and potentially domestically illegal.
Bypassing ITAR dual-use rules, and pretty much all our civilian nuclear tech is very much under ITAR dual-use regulations, is still definitely a huge fucking deal. We fucked with Libya hard over some plausibly dual-use aluminum cylinder sales and did invade Iraq over questions of improper WMD proliferation assumed to be built on dual-use technology sales.
Hey, you sound like you know what's up. If the Trump admin does this transfer anyway because they believe they are above the law, a point very much proven by how utterly unconcerned they are with consequence, how screwed is the world?
This sounds like they're trying to sell Saudi Arabia a set of nuclear power plants, and ours all require enriched uranium to run, the stuff you could plausibly cobble together to create a fission weapon like the one we dropped on Hiroshima. Nearly all nuclear material can be used to create radiological weapons that essentially poison an area for decades or longer, but the uranium in American nuclear reactors can be repurposed with some effort to produce a fission bomb as well. This risk is ostensibly the reason the US is constantly pissed at Iran. We suspected them of militarizing their civilian nuclear technology efforts to create fission weapons. The successful militarization of civilian nuclear technology is one of the many, many sins of North Korea.
Even if SA decide to be good actors and not build nukes, there's no fucking chance in hell Iran trusts them to not do it, which means even if Iran had somehow been honest about not wanting to build nukes before, that all goes out the window. Not to mention it's way more likely a country like SA actually uses nukes than a more rational actor like Iran. Iran isn't a bastion of human rights or anything, but it's still much more of a democracy than SA. SA might just nuke Yemen because fuck it, they're subhuman infidel trash, etc. When your policy stems from the worst aspects of both racism and religious extremism, your having nukes is bad news.
This video was automatically created by Reddit to speech. The article and comments in this video were selected from Reddit according to their upvotes, and any paraphrasing was performed by smmry.com, without any human intervention.